Have you ever stopped to consider something deeply unsettling? A man who controlled the fate of millions, who woke up to wars at his borders, plagues wiping out entire cities, and conspirators sharpening knives behind his back, still sat down every single morning to write in his diary. Meanwhile you, with a supercomputer in your pocket, grocery delivery at your fingertips, and every piece of human knowledge one tap away, feel like you can't even find 5 minutes to breathe. Something is deeply, fundamentally wrong with that picture. And here's what nobody will tell you: the problem was never time. It was never your schedule, your workload, or the demands of modern life. The real problem is that 3 secrets, discovered independently by a Greek slave, a Roman emperor, and ancient Japanese warriors, were buried, hidden in plain sight for centuries. And the moment you understand them, something will shift in how you see every single hour of your day. But before I reveal the first secret, I need to tell you about a number that should terrify you: 23 minutes and 15 seconds. That's how long it takes the average human brain to return to full focus after a single interruption. One notification, one glance at your phone, one stray thought about something you can't even control. Gloria Mark at the University of California spent years measuring this, and the results were devastating. Because now ask yourself, how many times you interrupted each day? 3 times? 5? Do the math. Most people are silently hemorrhaging between 3 and 5 hours every single day. Not to laziness, not to procrastination, but to something far more invisible and far more dangerous. And here's the part that will haunt you. At the end of those days, you collapse with the feeling that you did everything and accomplished nothing. That hollow exhaustion, that quiet frustration, that sense that the day ran through your fingers like water and you have nothing solid to show for it. You've felt that, haven't you? That feeling isn't a productivity problem, it's a philosophy problem, and it goes all the way back to ancient Greece. The Greeks had 2 completely different words for time. Most languages collapsed them into one and lost something irreplaceable in the process. Chronos, the relentless tick of the clock, seconds bleeding into minutes, minutes into hours, the time that waits for no one, and Kairos, the time of opportunity, the perfect moment, the art of being so fully present that you can catch what ordinary people always miss. Here is the tragedy of the modern world. We are absolutely consumed by chronos, squeezing tasks into hours, optimizing calendars, setting timers, while remaining completely blind to Kairos. The samurai understood Kairos, the Stoics understood Kairos, men who lived in chaos that would break any modern person understood something about time that our entire civilization has forgotten. Today, I'm going to give you back what was lost. 3 principles, 3 ancient discoveries, and a story that connects them all. Pay close attention, because by the end of this, you won't just understand your problem with time, you'll understand why you were almost designed to waste it. Chapter 1: The Broken Filter. Let me tell you about Lucas. 25 years old, Chicago. Freelance video editor with a few solid clients, bills paid, alarm set early. From the outside, Lucas had it together. But Lucas carried something heavy that nobody could see. Every morning before his feet even touched the floor, his hand found his phone. And in those first 30 seconds of consciousness, before coffee, before a single breath of fresh air, Lucas handed the controls of his entire day to strangers on the internet. Views on his portfolio, likes on his Instagram, client responses to proposals he'd sent. If the numbers smiled at him, he felt briefly invincible, followed immediately by a gnawing anxiety to maintain it. If the numbers didn't smile, a gray fog rolled in over everything. He would sit at his desk, open his editing software, and stare. The cursor blinked, the timeline sat empty, and Lucas's mind began its familiar circuit. Am I good enough? Did that client not respond because my price was too high? Should I have done everything differently? 2 hours would pass. Not a single frame edited, but Lucas felt like he'd run a marathon. The kind of exhaustion you feel after an emotional battle, not a physical one. And here's the part that makes this story so unsettling. Lucas thought he was working on his career. He thought the worry, the analysis, the mental replay was somehow productive, that if he just thought about it hard enough, something would change. But there was a secret he didn't know, a secret discovered not by a modern psychologist or a Silicon Valley productivity guru, but by a man who owned nothing, a man who couldn't even claim ownership of his own body. His name was Epictetus, and he was a slave, born into captivity. No choice about where he entered the world, no rights over his own movement, his own time, his own flesh. And it was precisely because of this, because he had been stripped of everything that most people cling to, that Epictetus saw something that free men never could. He saw the line. In the very first paragraph of his handbook, The Enchiridion, he wrote what may be the most precise sentence in all of Western philosophy. There are things that depend on us, and things that do not depend on us. That's it. 8 words that should have changed everything. Things that depend on you, your opinions, your efforts, your choices, your response to what life throws. Things that do not depend on you, what others think, the final result, the algorithm, the client's mood, the past, the weather, the number on a screen. Epictetus looked at the entire architecture of human suffering and saw one thing at the root of almost all of it. People investing emotional energy, their most precious limited resource, into things they were never able to control in the first place, and then calling that caring, calling that hard work, Lucas was doing exactly this. 2 hours of mental energy poured into views he couldn't change, responses that didn't depend on him, opinions of people whose names he didn't even know. It wasn't ambition. It was the emotional equivalent of screaming at the wind to change direction. And the cost isn't just wasted time. Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan, one of the world's leading researchers on internal dialogue, has shown that rumination doesn't just steal hours, it actively degrades your brain's ability to function. The prefrontal cortex, which governs focus, decision-making and rational thought, runs on a finite resource called executive function, and rumination burns through it like a virus running in the background of your computer, silently, invisibly, consuming power you didn't know you were spending. Lucas had 30 mental tabs open, all draining energy, none of them with a tab marked actual work. Now here is where it gets interesting, because when Lucas finally discovered Epictetus Filter, when he began running every single thought through the question, does this depend on me, something almost impossible happened. The day got longer, not literally, but in a way that felt more real than the clock. Suddenly there were hours he'd never had before. Projects were delivered faster, quality improved. The invisible exhaustion lifted. For 3 weeks Lucas felt like he had cracked the code, and then on a Tuesday morning in his 4th week everything collapsed. Chapter 2, The Missing Shield. He was deep in a project. Tight deadline, full focus, the kind of rare, clean concentration that feels almost sacred when you're in it. Then his email chimed. A message from a former client, 2-month-old work. The tone was accusatory, unfair in a way that felt almost deliberate. Something cold moved through Lucas's chest. The focus vanished instantly, completely, as if it had never existed. For the next 2 hours he drafted responses and deleted them. He replayed every moment of that old project in his mind, building a case, defending himself to a jury that wasn't there. The anger was real, the outrage was real, but the deadline was very, very real too, and he missed it. And then the spiral, frustration at lost time, anxiety about the delay, shame about his reaction, swallowed the rest of the day whole. Lucas sat in the wreckage and asked himself the question that should chill you too. I had the filter. Why didn't it work? He knew that email wasn't in his control. He knew the client's behavior wasn't his to own. He'd run it through Epictetus framework perfectly in his mind and still lost 2 hours. Why? Because he had the filter, but he didn't have the shield. And now we arrive at the second secret, the one discovered by a man under pressures that make Lucas's story look like a minor inconvenience. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, ruler of 40 million people across territories that stretched from Scotland to Syria. He governed during the Antonine Plague, a pandemic that killed up to 10 million people across the empire. He fought wars on 3 separate fronts simultaneously. He navigated Senate conspiracies, betrayals from his closest advisors, the corruption of men he had trusted with his life. By any modern standard, Marcus Aurelius should have been broken, should have been paranoid, reactive, burning through decisions on pure adrenaline. Instead, he was one of the most mentally composed human beings who ever lived. And his secret was disturbing in its simplicity. Every morning before the empire demanded anything from him, Marcus Aurelius sat with a notebook and deliberately imagined everything that could go wrong that day. Not to spiral into anxiety, not to catastrophize, but to vaccinate himself. In the Meditations, a private diary never intended for anyone else's eyes, he wrote things like, at dawn, remind yourself today I will meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. He wasn't being pessimistic. He was being a general who knew that soldiers who've been trained to expect ambushes survive them. Soldiers who expect clear roads get destroyed by the first surprise. Here's the neuroscience that Marcus Aurelius never had but intuitively understood. Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman explains that when something unexpected and negative occurs, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, triggers a stress response that can hijack your rational mind for 20, 30, even 45 minutes. Neuroscientists call this amygdala hijacking. The prefrontal cortex, the part capable of measured intelligent responses, temporarily loses control. You're left reacting from pure emotion, doing and saying things you'll regret, burning time you'll never recover. But here's the key that changes everything. When the negative event has already been anticipated, when the brain has already built a model for it and rehearsed a response, the amygdala hijack doesn't happen. The surprise is gone. And without the surprise, there is no emotional wildfire. The brain says, I've seen this before, I know what to do. Lucas rebuilt his morning ritual around this discovery. 5 minutes, a notebook, 3 questions. What is the single most important thing I need to complete today? What is the most likely thing that could derail me? And this is the one that matters most. How will I respond when that happens? Not if when. Because things always happen. The rude email, the unexpected call, the collapsed plan. The only variable is whether you meet them as a trained warrior or a startled animal. When the next hostile email arrived, and it did, Lucas didn't freeze. He looked at it and thought, almost calmly, I knew something like this was coming. The plan is to respond after 5 p.m. with a clear head. Right now I return to what matters, and he did. 2 minutes, no drama, no lost hours, no spiral. The same situation that had previously cost him an entire day now cost him less than the time it takes to make coffee. Researcher Gabriel Artinian at New York University developed a technique called WOP, Wish Outcome Obstacle Plan. which is essentially Marcus Aurelius's morning practice reconstructed with modern scientific methodology. The structure is nearly identical to what a Roman emperor was doing in the 2nd century AD. The difference is that now we have MRI scans proving exactly why it works. But here's what I haven't told you yet. Even with both secrets in place, the filter and the shield, Lucas still felt something gnawing at him, something deeper. Something that no amount of focus or preparation could seem to fix. And the answer came from the last place he expected, Chapter 3. The missing knot. Months had passed. Lucas was almost unrecognizable from the man who used to lose 2 hours to a blinking cursor. Less anxiety, sharper focus, a cleaner relationship with his own mind. But there was a feeling he couldn't name, a specific quiet dread that sat at the bottom of every productive day. He had 6 projects open simultaneously, 3 client videos mid-edit, an online course half-built, a YouTube channel permanently stuck in the planning phase, a partnership proposal that had been 40% complete for 3 months. Every day he touched each one, made small advances everywhere, finished nothing, and despite 10, sometimes 12 hours of genuine work, the end of each day brought the exact same feeling: stagnation. As if he'd been running full speed on a treadmill, real sweat, real effort, real exhaustion, absolute zero forward movement. Then a Japanese designer he'd been collaborating with said 4 words that split his understanding of the problem wide open. Do you know Muse didn't? In Japanese tradition, rooted deep in Shinto culture, Musubi is the principle of tying, of closing, of completing a cycle. You see it in the sacred knots that decorate ancient temples. Each knot is a musubi, a deliberate closure that transforms something open and unresolved into something whole. But here is the dimension of this concept that Lucas wasn't prepared for. The samurai didn't think about the next enemy while fighting the first. The entire philosophy of the warrior demanded singular, complete presence, one battle, everything you have, finished, breathe, and only then, only when that cycle is fully closed, do you move forward. And there is something even deeper still. The Japanese concept of zanshin, the awareness that lingers after the action. When a Japanese archer releases an arrow, he does not immediately lower the bow. He holds the posture, maintains the presence, honors the completion for several seconds after the shot, not because it changes the arrow's path. The arrow has already flown. But because closure is not just physical, it is psychological, spiritual. It is the act of telling your mind this is finished. You can release it now. Without zanshin, without musubi, you carry everything forward. Every unfinished thing becomes a weight you don't notice you're dragging. And here is the science underneath the ancient wisdom. In the 1920s, Lithuanian psychologist Bluma Zaganik made an observation that would eventually reshape how we understand cognitive load. She noticed that waiters could perfectly recall every detail of orders that hadn't yet been delivered, but immediately forgot completed orders the moment they were served. The brain, she discovered, maintains an active signal, an open loop, for everything that remains incomplete. It cannot let go of the unresolved. It keeps the file open, keeps the process running, keeps a quiet alarm sounding. 6 unfinished projects meant 6 alarms running simultaneously inside Lucas's head. None loud enough to be urgent. All of them loud enough together to make genuine depth of focus nearly impossible. Like trying to have a profound conversation in a room where 6 televisions are playing at low volume in 6 different languages. The Musubi solution is almost shockingly simple. Choose one project, one cycle, give it everything, tie the knot, and only once that knot is fully tied, only once the closure is real and complete, do you open the next thing. Lucas looked at his 6 projects and asked himself the question that cut through all the noise. If I could finish only one of these this month, which one changes everything? The answer arrived immediately. A client video already 70% complete. Finishing it would generate income, it would generate reputation. It was the one knot that once tied would pull the others tighter. He put the other 5 on a list titled after the knot and walked away from them without guilt. 4 days later, the video was done, and the feeling of completion, that deep, clean exhale of something finally whole, was something he hadn't felt in months. It wasn't just satisfaction, it was the lifting of a weight he hadn't fully realized he'd been carrying. Then the next project. Then the next. In 3 weeks, Lucas completed more work than he had in the previous 2 months combined. Not because he worked harder, not because he worked longer, because he stopped dividing himself. The triangle that ancient civilizations unknowingly built together now stepped back. Look at what we actually have here. A Greek slave who never met a Roman emperor. A Roman emperor who never encountered Japanese Shinto tradition. A Japanese warrior philosophy that developed on the other side of the planet, centuries removed from both. 3 completely separate civilizations, 3 completely different contexts, 3 independent roads that somehow arrived at the exact same destination. That is not coincidence. That is the shape of something true. The filter, Epictetus, clears the battlefield. It asks the fundamental question before a single step is taken. Does this deserve my energy? Without it, you pour effort into things that were never yours to change, and wonder why the ground doesn't move. The shield, Marcus Aurelius, protects the plan, because clarity about what to do means nothing if a sudden emotional wildfire destroys your ability to execute by 10 in the morning. The shield doesn't prevent the ambush. It ensures the ambush doesn't win. The knot, Musubi, guarantees completion. With a clear field and protected focus, you approach each task the way the samurai approached each battle. Fully present, beginning to end, nothing held in reserve for a fight that isn't happening yet. Epictetus decides what. Marcus Aurelius prepares how. Musubi guarantees until the end a perfect triangle, each vertex holding the other two. And modern neuroscience, with all its brain imaging and longitudinal studies and peer-reviewed research, has spent decades catching up to what three ancient traditions already knew. The 3 reasons you never have enough time, so let's be precise about what you now know. The first reason you never have enough time: you are burning your most valuable resource on things that were never yours to control. Other people's opinions, results already beyond your reach, the past that cannot be rewritten. Epictetus's filter is surgical. Before a single second of attention goes anywhere, ask, does this depend on me? If not, release it. Not with resignation, with intelligence. Because protecting your attention is not laziness, it is the most sophisticated form of self-respect. The second reason you never have enough time: you are being ambushed by things you didn't prepare for. One negative surprise can hijack your rational mind for nearly an hour. Marcus Aurelius's shield costs 5 minutes every morning. 5 minutes to ask what could go wrong, to rehearse your response before the moment arrives. When it does, and it always does, you won't react, you'll execute. The third reason you never have enough time: you are starting everything and finishing nothing. Every open loop is an alarm inside your brain, silent but constant, consuming the focus you desperately need. Musubi demands ruthlessness. Choose one cycle, tie the knot completely, and only then, only with full closure, move forward. Together, the filter, the shield, the knot. Clarity, protection, execution. Lucas learned this at 25. Some people discover it at 40, others at 60, and many, perhaps the majority, spend their entire lives running, producing, keeping busy, filling hours with noise that feels like progress, and at the end, they look back and realize they were too busy to actually live. So let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with it before you answer. How many open loops are running in your mind right now? How many unfinished things are draining you at this exact moment, below the surface of your awareness? How many hours of this week went toward things that were never, not for a single second, in your control? This is the moment, not tomorrow, not after the next project, the next launch, the next milestone. Right now, apply the filter. Raise the shield. Pick up the knot. Time has never waited. It isn't waiting now. If this reached something in you, subscribe. What we're building here isn't self-help. It's the recovered wisdom of traditions that survived millennia, translated into the actual texture of modern life. Every video is a tool. Leave a comment below. Which of the 3 hit hardest? Epictetus's filter, Marcus Aurelius's shield, or Musubi's knot? I want to know. And if you want to go deeper, the last video we released explores the 3 hidden reasons most people never truly master any skill, no matter how hard they try. That one might surprise you. See you there.